Clancy fed the videotape into the VCR. It clicked, word, and the tape disappeared like a tongue withdrawing back into a mouth. He crouched in front of the seat and stretched his crook leg out in front of him, sliding it under the TV cabinet so he could reach the dials. It was like the tree trunk that broke his leg was somehow inside him now, keeping the flesh stiff and the bones rigid. Clancy sat on the coffee table and switched on the set. The screen lit up, a throbbing green square. It was murder to his eyes. Outside, Clancy could hear the rain. His old dog, Queenie, was curled around her tail like a possum in front of the fire. She only ever came inside at night when it was raining. Her paw twitched. It had been raining for almost a week, uncommon for November in Tassie. His leg always acted up in the rain. Clancy pressed the triangle play button on the VCR. It only took a few seconds for the screen to turn black. He heard James, like he'd heard him hundreds of times before on the tape. "Oi, is this secure?" The other bloke answered. He was somewhere behind the camera. "It's good to go, mate." James appeared very close to the screen. His face looked scattered, as if pieces of him had been taken apart and reassembled with too much space in between. "Is there cover?" he asked, looking just past the screen. "Not enough to obscure anything. Certainly not coming down through the trees." "It won't get wet?" asked James. "Waterproof casing, mate," said the other bloke. James's face disappeared from the centre of the screen. Then Clancy heard him climbing back down the tree. The branches hanging over the tree shook. The picture shifted and came in and out of focus. It was almost dusk. One last wiggle of the camera, and Clancy heard the other bloke climb down. The branches shook again. "Don't forget to cover the footprints," he said. "Righto," said James. "Let's set up the next one." Not James, nor the other bloke seemed to notice the cairn, but Clancy did. 5, maybe 6 flat river stones stacked purposely at the base of the tree opposite. Not exactly in the path James and the other bloke were interested in, but close enough. "There's not much light left, said the other bloke. "Better get a wriggle on then," said James. Clancy waited. It was almost an hour before the first wallaby came nosing. He never used the fast forward button. No point. Nothing to move towards. Clancy lifted himself up off the coffee table and sat in his armchair. He took the weight off his leg and groaned. Queenie opened one eye to check on him and promptly closed it again. Essie's doilies was still on the armrest. Her chair was still next to his too. Clancy'd always hated those fucking doilies, but left them anyway. Often he worried at the edge of the lacy web beneath his elbow, and both of his on his chair were badly stained, with no one there to clean them. He reached over and rested his hand where hers would have been. The wallaby was small, although by the time it came twitching through the scrub, it was almost dark and hard to tell. Everything was black and lit with silver white outlines. The wallaby stayed for a moment, looking, sniffing, on the watch for danger. Then her eyes flashed and she bolted. Clancy'd seen it before. He didn't blame her. These days he might even bolt himself if given half the chance. An owl hooted in the distance, and even though Clancy knew it was probably long dead, he looked outside the window through the black rain to see if the bird was here or there. The owl hooted again. There. Masked barn owls, they called them, but the Titos were never interested in barns. Biggest in the world, his star reckoned. Clancy saw one once with Jack that was the size of a human baby. It had eyes like glass and talons like gardening forks. Plenty of them still left, Jack reckoned, white-faced and wary, hunting like ghosts in the bush. 20 minutes, and there was another wallaby on the screen. Then nothing, until a possum almost knocked the camera from its branch. Clancy never asked James how he kept them in place. Another ghost hoot. Clancy never actually saw the Tito, but after almost 13 years of watching the same footage, he could easily imagine the ghost face behind the sounds. Then silence. A deep, knowing howl filled by the beating of wings and a cry, a squeak, crack, and then silence. A while after, the devil came sniffing. It snapped its jaws, brash and unafraid, and stumbling away again like his da on the grug. Clancy wondered if that was how he looked when he searched the scrub, especially with his crook leg, wearing the tiger skin. He changed the tape. James and the other bloke had been there 5 nights in total, but only 3 tapes existed from the night, with his favourite view of the mountain, just beyond the fence and into the scrub, up always and follow the fallen Huon. On one side of the video frame was a giant eucalypt, on the other side a lemon-scented boronia. The ground was covered with tufts of tassel rope rush and limbs of king ferns. The second tape was more of the same. A few more wallabies, a wombat, and even what looked like a feral cat or quoll. Most of the third tape was early morning, and it ended soon after the sun came and the fucking kookaburras started. Clancy pressed play. More wallabies came, 5 in all to poke around. As boys, Clancy and Jack often discussed how long it might take for the smell of their bodies to disappear from the scrub. None of the morning wallabies seemed very concerned about James or the other bloke. Clancy'd never mentioned it to Jack. Once the dawn cookers started, Clancy got up and hit the stop button. The cackling stopped. Queenie rolled away from him and faced the wall, kicked her legs like she was trying to kick him away. He slouched into the wall and let it guide him around to the window. It was this way every night. One of the tapes in the VCR and a view of somewhere on the mountain. No matter how many times he watched, there was always nothing. No hint of cage-like stripes or rush of red fur. No bark or yawning teeth. No scarper. No laugh or hint of white dress. No river. No burning night eyes, just the emptiness already caught between the trees and ferns and rock. Clancy pressed the rewind button. Black cables of tape buzzed inside the VCR all the way back to the start. Ready to play again tomorrow. Thank you.